Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Bright Founders Talk at Temi. Temi is an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. My name is Matthew, and today I have the honor of being joined by Mr. Bastian Bergmann, or Bergmann, who is the co-founder and CEO at a company called Solsten. How are you today, Bastian?
Doing very well, Matt. Thanks for having me on.
It's a great pleasure, and thank you for taking time to be with us today and share some of your insights and experience with us. So, Bastian, let's start off. If you can tell our viewers and our listeners a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
Yeah, my name's Bastian. I'm a co-founder and COO at a company called Solsten. As a company and as a business, we really focus on empowering other brands and other companies out there, pretty much anybody that has a direct relationship with consumers these days, to really understand any audience a lot more deeply than ever before, and understand what will resonate with those audiences. So really, how do we build better experiences for people, and how do we market and ultimately also sell more effectively to consumers? It's really an audience intelligence play at the end of the day, audience insights, and the types of insights that we're focused on is very, very unique in the overall landscape that's out there, because we really focus on understanding what we like to say the human being behind consumers. So we focus on actually measuring in an anonymous way psychological profiles on consumers and different consumer groups, and really letting companies understand how do we best design and how do we best market from that cognitive perspective to different types of consumers out there. We've been around for almost 7 years, so we're in our 7th year at this point. In a former life, which at this stage feels like a really distant past. I used to be a strategy consultant at the Boston Consulting Group, focus a lot on digital strategy, digital marketing strategy, audience segmentation projects across different industries. Spent my time between Germany and the United States at that time, and about, I want to say, 10 to 11 years ago, moved back to Germany, moved to Berlin, and started my first couple of companies, predominantly an incubation studio called WhatX, where we incubated different startups. In about the 3.5 years that I was there, we launched 5 different companies. They were all seed, Series A, Series B funded. Two of them actually got acquired at this point. The whole focus at that time already was AI, machine learning technologies, to really help with personalization, both in physical environments as well as digital environments. And data privacy was already a big focus at that point. I always like to say, how do you let machines learn about people without compromising people's identity? That's a lot of the work that we did back then. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Terrific. So a couple things I'd like to unpack there. I want to get into exactly what you just mentioned now. Human beings being as complex as they are, tying in the psychology of people, we're all different, into machines, into data, into usable data. Mm-hmm. That must present its own set of challenges. Tell us a bit about maybe some of the things that you figured out or discovered along the way.
Yeah, I'm happy to. And I think when you look at the last 10, 15, maybe even 20 years of technological progress and the evolution and partial, I guess, revolution, if you want to call it that we've gone through, a big challenge that we're all faced with as consumers, and on the other side, obviously, the businesses that are serving these consumers and us as consumers, is that the level of understanding that these companies have about us as consumers and as people is actually pretty limited. We always tend to believe, oh, well, Facebook has all this data and they know everything about me, or Meta, I should say, or insert any other name of, big tech company. And while it's true that they have a lot of data, the problem is that they actually don't have a lot of relevant data about you as a consumer. So a lot of the experiences, and you can see that in how a lot of the algorithms work, how targeting algorithms work, why consumers are shown certain ads over other ads. It's all based on either demographic data or our behaviors and maybe our interests and some of our preferences. The challenge with both of those is, if you talk about demographic data, and you just actually gave you made a really important point, Matt. We said, we as human beings, we have similarities and we have commonalities, even across cultural backgrounds, ethnic groups. Like there's a lot that unites us as humans. But then even within those cultural subgroups, for example, there's a lot of difference and a lot of nuance and complexity that can make us distinctly the human that we are as an individual or as a smaller subgroup. And the problem is that for the longest time, companies that are serving consumers have been treating consumers as, well, we work in quite a bit in video games, for example. We're making a video game for 30 to 40-year-old women in the United States of America. Great. That literally means nothing. It's like saying they all drink the same wine, they eat the same food, they like the same dress, and they like the same color, which when you give that example, everyone typically goes, well, that doesn't make any sense, and that's obviously not true. But when you work off of demographic data, because our age, our gender, the zip code we live in actually doesn't mean anything. It doesn't say and disclose anything about who we are as people. Like we were just talking before getting into this, and you told me that you were on an island in the south of France. Right. I could go there right now or tomorrow because, we want to hang out in person, and maybe I'll move to the south of France. And all of a sudden I would get, targeted as a resident of France. For those who know me a little bit better, there's very few stereotypical French things about me, and I'm still the same person. So, but it's this over, reductionism of how we think about consumers. And the problem with behavioral data is it has a lot of merit up to a certain point. It has a lot of value in looking at it, but it hits a ceiling fairly quickly for a number of reasons. One is you're always looking into the rearview mirror. It's the past, because behavior is what has already happened. And it's not necessarily indicative nor predictive of what will happen in the future. And typically when companies start to analyze behavioral data, you'll run into, the following two questions. Why are we seeing the behavior that we're seeing? And two, well, what do we do about it? Mm-hmm. And behavioral data can't give you those answers. You just know that the behavior happened, but you don't know why it happened. So what we're trying to bring with our unique perspective around, okay, let's understand the actual human behind all this other data, behind the consumers that you're looking at. It unlocks the why and it unlocks the what do we do about it, because our psychology, our cognition is really what compels people to act. It's what compels you to click on this marketing ad or this campaign versus this campaign. It's what compels you to why you prefer Coca-Cola over Pepsi, or why you prefer Nike over Adidas, or why you play these types of video games versus these types of video games. It's not the game in and of itself. It's how that game or how that brand or how a product connects with who you are. That's what really compels our interests, our choices, the behaviors, and the decisions that we make. So for us, it's really about unlocking that. And I think what we've seen over the last few years, and it's gotten better and better and better progressively, but when we started 7 years ago, talk about being at the frontier of something new and talk about a paradigm shift. Like there's a lot of companies that were listening to us going, that's really interesting. It's really interesting. But I feel like I have everything I need. Like, why do I need to do that? And it's, 7, 8 years ago, things specifically when you talk about marketing still worked reasonably well to an extent. Yeah. But then Apple took away privacy, they upped the ante on privacy. They took away tracking. So the whole IDFA deprecation. Google is delaying its plans, but it's going to do something similar in the browser. And over time, privacy requirements are just going to increase. So the traditional means of just throw an ad into Meta's algorithm and let them target people as specifically as they can without really giving much thought into what are we really putting in front of the consumer and who are we trying to connect with and how do we do that? It used to be an afterthought in specific industries for sure. And now all of that is coming to the forefront. So we've definitely seen a paradigm shift and a change in thinking of how companies are tackling these problems too.
So, Bastian, there's a lot of moving parts to this, and you've touched on something interesting. You spoke about privacy, keeping your data or your data safe, and that sort of stuff. Moving with the times, as well as these big companies change what's happening. Can you tell us a little bit about that, about staying relevant, staying on track with all the changes? And obviously, as a multinational company, there's different rules in different places. How are you juggling all of these things? How are you staying on top of what's happening?
Yeah, it's a very, very good question. I think to an extent you have to, there's both truth in this for what do you do as an individual and then what do you do as a company. But I think you have to pick your battles a little bit, and you really have to understand and figure out, okay, what's actually really relevant for us? What are the areas that we really need to pay attention to? And what's potentially noise? And I think how we're looking at it is, so we always pay a very close eye on anything that takes place in the privacy regulation, in the legality of everything. So are there new requirements for how we have to treat data that we're collecting on individuals? Are there changed or increased privacy requirements that would cause us to change our approach to how we collect data from what it's previously been? We have a dedicated legal team that we work with. It's not in-house, but we have a legal partner that we work with who keeps a close eye on this for all of us and flags these things proactively. The other element that we do, because we're such an intelligence and technology heavy company with a lot of really important patents around personalization technology and using psychology together with behavior to actually recommend content to people in digital environments. Like, Solsten actually owns that patent. A lot of people don't know that. So it's kind of like what Netflix is recommending to you and what Amazon's recommending to you. Like, we actually own the patent for these types of algorithms. And so there's a dedicated patent team that we work with who scans the market on certain activities and, applications that are being filed and opportunities to see what's evolving there. And then the rest is, I think, just being really in tune, and you have to do that as founders, but also together with your team, both on product and on business, to watch the landscape, to watch what are other people doing, where's investment money going, and what are some of the initiatives and strategies that are being set in motion to then figure out, okay, try and project that forward. Because you have to extrapolate to an extent, because if you just look at what is today, you're going to be limited in that view. You have to try and go, well, where could this go and where might this lead, to then understand where's our place if that's the way the world is going to evolve. And one of the things that at least has helped me, just to not to make this broader point about, maybe the company, but for me as personally, and how I try to navigate these environments, I try to think of everything in terms of scenarios. So rather than kind of like, don't operate in terms of certainties, operate with probabilities. So, and you go, oh, well, if this is scenario one, this could happen. What do we think is the likelihood that would happen? And what would that mean for us? Okay. Then there's this pathway and scenario two, and maybe there's this pathway, scenario three, and you go through the same exercise. If that were to transpire, what are the implications for us? What can we do today to mitigate that or to elevate our chances against that? And what's the probability of those things happening? And that's where you start to get into a world where you basically trying to offset probability of something happening and then both the potential but also the risk to your company, to really figure out, okay, what do we have to do now? Because either we're downside protecting because it could be really detrimental to us, or because there's a huge opportunity for us and we have to play with it. And you're not always going to get it right. I remember we built a part of our whole product suite, it must have been 3 years ago at this point, called Frequency, that was built right when Apple announced that, okay, we're deprecating IDFA, we're deprecating, tracking on an individual level. You can't do that anymore. What we saw where this was going to go was, okay, it's going to make the algorithmic targeting of individuals with ads really challenging, really bad. The performance of that's going to go down. Well, what's the thing the companies are going to have to do that's going to offset that? They're going to have to invest in the creative. They're going to have to actually invest in, how do I build the best possible ad and marketing campaign again to actually bring in the consumer that I really want for my product? So what we built in Frequency was this tool where our customers could upload any of their marketing assets, their campaign assets, and our algorithm would start to understand what are the elements in that visual and which psychological traits do they actually tie to. So that if you were targeting a specific audience, the platform was able to tell you how much does this ad that you want to launch actually fit the type of consumer that you're trying to target with it. Like, really smart idea, exactly the product that needed to happen. What we got wrong was the timing of it, because what we underestimated was that it would take an additional 2 years for teams and companies in the industry to really materially feel the impact of the increased privacy regulations. So they had this window of almost like where it's like this drawdown window where they could still play by the old rules for a prolonged time, even though the regulation was already in place because they had enough legacy data. But about a year ago, that started to go away. And what do you know? We've seen probably tenfold the activity and interest in how do we use your guys' data to basically make better ads, if I were to put it really simple, because our targeting's broken. So, I think that's one of the things that came out of that scenario planning. And it's not, you're never going to get it perfectly right. Like, there's an element of serendipity / luck, depending on what you want to believe in, that has to be a part of that equation, in my opinion. But yeah, I think we got the customer need and the market trend. We got that one right, where we were just ahead of the curve. And what we got wrong was a little bit of the timing, which that's easier to rectify afterwards. It's always better, in my opinion, to be a little bit early with stuff rather than you're completely missing the boat and you have to play catch up.
Yeah, you don't want to look back and go, we should have.
We should have.
Yeah, 100%. So tell us a little bit. You've given us some great information and that a lot of things to work through there. But tell me a little bit about, you talking about different teams that you have in the company, how some people are working on certain aspects and you're monitoring what's happening and what's changing. How do you go about building your team? What kind of people do you bring in? What are you looking for? What do you surround yourself with in your workspace?
It's a really, really great question. And I think for us, and that's a really consistent theme across these 7 years, we've just been so fortunate to be able to both attract and then retain and work with the talent and the types of people that we've been just fortunate and privileged to work with. Like, it's been every day, quote unquote, going to work with the team that we have. It's just been phenomenal. So I think that I just want to make that point, because we don't take that for granted any day of the week. That doesn't mean that things are perfect. No, it's never perfect. But the baseline for the types of people that we have and that we get to interact with and we get to learn from every day is pretty astonishing. It's pretty profound. I think one of the things that my co-founder and I did when we first started the company, it was one of the first things that we did next to, okay, we're writing investor pitch decks because, we want to go out and raise funding. We're building a first pitch deck to maybe go and hopefully get a first couple of customers. One of the first things that we did was we sat down together and said, okay, what are our values as a company? What do we want this place to be? What do we want this to feel like when a new hire, walks into the door? What are they experiencing? What are they feeling? And what does this place stand for? And I think that's such an important exercise. And it's not a one and done kind of exercise. You have to revisit it because your values are going to evolve. Like, we're neither the same company that we were 7 years ago when we started, nor are we the exact same people that we were 7 years ago. Like, you grow through, all those, the accumulation of all these different experiences and moments that you go through together. And ideally you grow as a person, ideally there's growth on the other side of that. And your value set should evolve also with the stage in which the company is in. A company that has 5 employees is very different than a company that is at 30 employees going on 50, going on 100 employees. There's different things all of a sudden that are important around standardization, processes, procedures, because when you're early stage and you're 5 to 10 people, you as the founders, you're in the room with pretty much everybody. There's seamless flow of information. Like, everyone has access to everything. There is almost no such thing as, well, I didn't know or I wasn't aware, because you're constantly together. When you make the leap to 20 to 30 people, all of a sudden you start to hear the first rumblings around, oh, this person wasn't aware, or this person wasn't in the loop, or or these requirements weren't clear to me. And you start to realize you can't be with every person at all times anymore. It just doesn't work, nor is it the right thing to do. So I think, you have to really, as founders and as leaders of the company, be really mindful of what is the stage your company, your business is progressing into, and how do you need to evolve, and how does the company and the organization need to change with the new talent that you're bringing in. And that brings me back to the question that you asked. There's a few consistent themes that we've had throughout this whole journey, and the types of people that we surround ourselves with and really want to surround ourselves with. And it's there's a lot of, we're looking for humility. So it's this combination of humility, people being humble, incredibly intelligent, very good communicators, very good proactive communicators, great collaborators. So the team is more important than the individual, than the ego. And that's one of the consistent themes is that we live by. We actually, we took inspiration from Roblox. They live by this value too. It's company over team over individual. And that gives you an incredibly simple but powerful baseline to make really effective decisions and work through challenges with individual team members, with teams within the entire organization, because it gives you the value set or a value-based way of evaluating challenges and opportunities to go, well, who's affected by this to what extent and how, and who are we as a company and how do we look at these things? But I think that's been a very consistent sort of set of values across all those different stages that we've always really appreciated. And I think another one is hardworking. If you're building something from scratch, and I'm not a big fan of, it's not about the, whatever you call it, hustle porn culture, or if you don't work a gazillion hours every week, you're not going to get anywhere. Like there's that camp. I'm not a fan of that, and I'm not like a proponent of that at all. But it is a reality that without hard work and dedication, you just can't get something off the ground. You just can't. It takes grit, determination, and hard work to go from point A to point B to point C. It's just a reality. That doesn't mean that you have to work 200 hours a week. Do you work more than in a regular corporate, very stable 9-to-5 job? Yeah, you do, and you have to. It's a reality, especially in the early stages.
So, great product, great team, tracking changes, staying relevant, moving forward into the future without giving any of your secrets away. Mm-hmm. Where do you see things going? Have you got big plans for the future?
It's a great question. Yeah, and I think we do, because how we look at where the world's going and how we fit into that. Technology has to continue to become a lot more human-centered and human-centric. The reality is that over the last 20 years, and not to take this into a completely dark corner, but I think the little detour is important here. With all the efficiencies and the convenience that we've gained through mobile, through tech, through everything, depression in the Western world has never been higher. Device addiction, teenagers, never been higher. Anxiety disorders, depression, it's just mental health is a global epidemic, full stop, across generations. And our devices and our technologies and the experiences have a lot to do with that. Now, I'm not saying that it's directness. There's causality has been proven, but I'm not saying that technology and the devices are inherently bad. It's not the point. It's how we interact with them and how we use them. So I do think we have a long way to go overall as species, as regulators, to really look at that and put in guardrails in place to make that relationship healthier. But also the technology itself can become healthy. And I think that's back to how we started this conversation and why Solsten's also focused on the type of data that we're focused on. Because if I can allow an algorithm to actually understand Matt as the human that you are, and I don't need to know your name, I don't need to know that you live in the south of France right now, I don't need to know all these other things about you that would let me identify you as Matt. It's about the person behind that, the human behind that. If I know that, and rather than showing you 100 ads on Amazon, and I can show you one a week, and I know that that's the one you really need to see because I'm catering to a fundamental need that you have, that you as a consumer might not have even known that you had that need. And you go, wow, that's actually that's actually just what I needed. Thank you, Amazon. Our relationship with tech can completely change. And I think that's what we're after, but it takes different type of data. It takes a different understanding of the consumer in order to be able to do that. And that's what we're focused on. So I think where all of this is going, there's the whole AI stream that's here to stay. People are going to try and scrape all of the data that they can scrape. And there's actually been stories already. I think it was Sam Altman even that said, we've already scraped all the world's data to train our models. There is no more data to scrape. There's no more training material. So they're going to have to come up with ways to create synthetic data sets, so to speak, to make those algorithms, keep training them and keep feeding the beast, so to speak. So what all of these companies are going to look for is differentiating data sets and data assets that are private and not publicly available, that are going to be able to take generative AI, all of these different AI systems, whether it's your assistants, chatbots, it doesn't matter, from this level to this level. Like, where's the unique edge in terms of data and training data that can help me build way better algorithms that humans will actually use and get a lot of value from? And we fundamentally believe that Solsten, because we've been actually able to build the largest psychological database in the world over the last 6 years. We're sitting on one of those data sets, and I think that's going to be a big thing over the next years for us, is to see, and how are we aligning ourselves with that continued evolution or the AI revolution, so to speak, and help all those systems actually become human-centered, and rather than give you regurgitated stuff that sounds like a computer did it, and it's kind of like unpersonalized, to there's an actual version of whatever AI that you're using that knows Matt and that speaks with you in your tone of voice, the language, the style, and hits the notes where it's actually really enjoyable for you to engage with that system. And you're getting a lot of value from it for whatever activities that you're using it throughout your day.
You touched on something there that piqued my interest, talking about the type of content that is suggested to me. And everybody's different. I'm not a shopper, but let's say I enjoy camping. Okay, I love camping. I'll put something online and I'll look for a new tent. And for the next 30 years, all I've got is tents. And every web page I open, it's tents, it's camping equipment. And it's so blatant and it's so much that it actually puts me off more than attracts me. It's one of those things that I think, if you get that right, that would be incredible. I would
That's
be
exactly it.
Personally much more prone to finding one or two things that are catered to me and going, that looks interesting. But my brain and my eyes are now so trained to just filter it out because 99% of it doesn't appeal to me. So I actually turn a blind eye to it. I don't look at it. So I think that would be incredible, and I would be much happier to be on the internet if that was the case.
Yeah, and you're 100% not alone in that. And the example that you just gave is really important from two sides. One is what you described is the reason why I think the latest stats for Meta ads in their network, it's 0.1% of the ads that are shown to people on Meta actually convert. So to your exact point, if those ads were actually relevant, people would click on them a lot more. They don't. And then on the flip side, think of all of the advertisers. Think of the people that are trying to sell camping tents or any other brand, how much advertising budget and money they're actually wasting, because exactly what you said, consumers just start to tune out because they get fatigued, because it's more of the same, and it's more of the same irrelevant stuff at the point. And what's actually more relevant to understand is, yes, from a contextual perspective, you purchased a tent. So you're okay, Matt's into camping. Great. What Solsten is able to understand is, well, why is Matt into camping? Like, why? What is it about you that is it because in the outdoors it's that sense of freedom that you get, or is it the connectedness to nature, or is it because you really value your time and you value autonomy, and when you're out camping, you're away from all the thrills and you get to have full autonomy over how you want to live that day and how you do all these things. Okay, now we've learned something that, yes, camping, but what around it that caters to that same value set that you have is actually going to be able to speak to you a lot more. So that's that layer that you were speaking to that we're bringing.
I love it. Bastian, I'm going to ask you one last one before I let you get back to work. We're talking about AI models. We're talking about, building data sets on people. How safe are we? Just for the layman, for anybody who might not understand how this works, am I okay? Do they have my name and my details somewhere? Are they going to use this against me one day? Or am I safe browsing online?
Great question. So the really short answer is you're completely safe, because every person in our system is fully anonymous. So no personally identifiable information whatsoever. We don't ask people directly for it. We track nothing in the background. So everyone's fully anonymous in our system. That's by design and intention, because we believe in privacy, and privacy is power. So what our whole premise is, we need to want to separate online from real life identity. So that's number one. And number two, you asked earlier about, the big things that are coming for the future. We actually believe that the consumers themselves should own and, be in charge of their data. So we're working on ways where we can give that control and that power and build ways to make that a reality for consumers, where we're putting you in the position you can say, yeah, I don't know what camping brand or like outdoor brand you're a fan of, like maybe the North Face or maybe Fjällräven. Like, yeah, I want Fjällräven to know these things about me because I want them to recommend better things to me. Or, yeah, I want Netflix to know this about me because I enjoy Netflix, and ever since I watched Game of Thrones, all I keep getting is more medieval shows with dragon and people beheading each other, and that's not really my thing. So, like, what else can you do for me? But Coca-Cola, no, I don't like. I don't want them knowing this stuff about me. So, making those trade-offs in the future really transparent for consumers and putting consumers in the power seat and the power position to make very conscious choices around who gets to see and interact with what. And I think that's going to further elevate, the requirements on companies to do right by consumers. And that's the whole thing. It's not bad for business. It's if you put the consumer first, if you put the customer first and you do right by consumers, it's much better for business too. So it's a win-win. It's just not the most convenient way for companies to necessarily get there, but it's the more profitable one, and it's the more sustainable one, and it's the one that has way more longevity, because what you're actually creating and what you spoke to earlier, you're creating a really healthy long-term relationship with your consumer, rather than, well, I got them to buy this thing and now we're spamming them with camping equipment, and it's actually more off-putting. And next time you turn around, you go, I'm never buying from that company again because holy shit, was that annoying? Yeah. So, I think it can definitely be a win-win for everyone.
I like that. And maybe then I'd make better choices. I know,
Yeah.
I bought a camera bag recently, and I'd done some online research. I found one that I liked. And then obviously, as it happened, I got thousands of ads for camera bags. And then I started finding bags that were better than the one I had. So then I was actually a bit frustrated because I didn't find it in my initial search. And then, one got suggested a week or two later. And I thought, that would have been helpful 2 weeks ago. But, damage is done. So, Bastian, I just want to say thank you very much. It was very insightful today. If anybody who's watching, interested, wants to get hold of you, wants to find out more about your company, where can they find you? What channels are you available through?
So our website is solsten.io. So solsten.io. Feel free to email me. It's just my first name @solsten.io. And LinkedIn is a great way as well. Bastian Bergmann, you're going to find me pretty quickly. All three avenues. Happy to chat more if it's about building companies, or if you're on the marketing side, the product side, running a business, you want to learn more about your audiences. All of those questions are great, and happy to just connect and stay in touch. So yeah, feel free to reach out anytime.
Fantastic. Bastian, thanks again for your time. It's been a pleasure. We wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you very much, Matt. It was great to be on, and yeah, thank you guys for having me.